Hey everyone, it is January 8, 2014. We are doing CES Live, and this is the iMore Show. Joining me right now, we have Senior Editor from iMore, Richard Devine. How are you, Richard?
Hello. Hello everybody, I'm good, Rene. How are you?
You still alive? You surviving?
It's been a long week so far.
It's been a long week, and you're in England, so now you're like a day behind.
Yeah, I think sometime next week back at home, so.
Also joining me, another Senior Editor from iMore, we have Georgia Dow. How are you, Georgia?
Hi, I'm good.
This is your first CES. Are you having fun?
This is my first CES, my first time in Vegas. It's amazing.
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 You're the first person I've heard say that. Also joining us, a videographer from iMore, someone who makes all of us look good, Anthony Casella. How are you, Anthony?
I'm doing excellently, thank you, Rene.
Thank you for actually being on this side of the camera for once.
Oh, it's fun. It's nerve-wracking.
It's nerve-wracking, but you don't have to hold anything heavy.
No, I think I'd rather.
So as everybody knows, Apple does not come to CES. Well, Apple does come to CES. Their buyers for the Apple Store are here, incognito on the lowdown. Maybe some marketing people are, taking a look at what other people are doing, and that's kind of where I want to start, because when Phil Nickinson from Android Central hits the ground, there are 8 tablets announced, 12 phones, an Android oven, maybe 3 elephants running Android by now, I don't know. So it was so bad, we had to lend you to Android Central for most of this show.
Pretty much. I landed on Saturday afternoon, straight into Android stuff on Sunday. It's crazy.
So give us a quick hit. What is Android doing at this show? What, if anything, is Windows Phone doing? Is there a tiny BlackBerry booth in the back? What's going on here?
There's been rumors there may be a secret BlackBerry room somewhere, but I haven't seen it so far. But there's just tons of Android stuff all over the place. We've got it on TVs, we've got it on phones, tablets, giant phones. We found it on an oven last night. It really is everywhere.
I heard a press lady going, it just won't stop texting you.
Yep, an oven that texts you. So and the best thing actually about that oven, we didn't really mention it in the post, but they will have an iOS app as well. So if you're an iPhone user, you will be able to have an Android-powered oven that will send you text messages.
Aww. Anthony, before becoming a videographer, you worked in IT. You know Linux very well. Is Android becoming the new embedded Linux?
Oh, well, definitely. I mean, although it's not as, well, it is modular, however, but it's not as customizable in terms of how Linux distributions were and whatnot. You can't put your own distribution on a phone. But yeah, I think it's going in that way.
Is that an advantage, though, for people who just want to make a stove quickly and not worry about all the modules?
Well, definitely. I mean, it's distributed free, if I'm correct, right? Android is distributed. So definitely, if they want to make an oven to be able to talk to you for whatever reason, I don't know why, but yeah.
I don't think I want my oven texting me. It would probably be like, you burnt it again.
Well, so one of the things, yesterday I interviewed Ryan Biden from Samsung Mobile, and he brought out these tablets and he put them on this table. First of all, there was like 19 tablets. I think maybe 4, but I'm going to say 19.
Kind of accurate.
There were pros and tabs, and I think 14, it was 12 inches, 10 inches, 10 inches, 8 inches, something like that. You all had a point something on them. But these were 2550 by 1600 screens, and not only at the big size, but at the small size. So we're getting down to 500 PPI on these tablets.
Yep, it's a pretty crazy resolution, especially on the small one. The large tablets, perhaps slightly relevant in, people have been talking and thinking and wondering if Apple will ever go bigger than the 9.7.
An iPad Pro, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, Samsung's now got a Tab Pro, and it's a large tablet. It really is.
What kind of hardware are we going to need now to run these big screens? I mean, is it worthwhile in terms of battery usage?
Well, that's the thing, is they have to balance power consumption with pushing all those pixels. All right, so I'm going to make a confession. I kind of like that Samsung is the crazy uncle in this, and they're just throwing everything against the wall, because some things will stick, and other companies who are a bit slower and more focused will pick up on those good things, and we won't have to be their guinea pigs, so to speak. But Georgia, do you need 500 PPI on a tablet? Do you want a screen that's 13 inches and has that many pixels on it?
Okay, so I don't need that many pixels. Screen resolution is not that important to me. I'm sorry, it just isn't my thing. What is important to me is battery life, and I do like a bigger screen. I would love to have a tablet that is the table tablet. It just pops out, there's like legs on it, and you can eat on the tablet while it's there. It can count your calories and do other things. So I don't mind, bigger is better in that way, but then we have to deal with battery life, because I don't like charging anything.
Battery life is getting better, though. I mean, Anthony, when the iPad first came out, Steve Jobs put it on a table. Well, actually, he sat down on his beautiful designer couch, took it out, and we heard 10 hours of battery life, and that was hugely impressive. But now, thanks to things like Haswell and Mavericks, we're getting 12 hours on a MacBook Air. So it seems like battery and performance are both increasing now.
Well, it's also their experience with the software, right? I mean, we went from previous to Mavericks. My battery life on my MacBook Air was, what, maybe 6 hours. It's gone up another 2 hours. So I think with software improvements, there's only so much technological improvements you're getting with batteries, but with software improvements, I think they're doing a lot better with that.
So here's the trade-off, and I'm asking you specifically, Georgia, because when the iPad 3 came out, you said that you would have rather Apple not make a Retina display and just give you an iPad 2 that's twice as fast. So with all this new stuff, would you rather have much longer battery life, or are you happy that they're increasing performance and keeping the same battery life?
Yeah, that's enough battery life for me, because I don't take my tablets out with me everywhere, so usually they're close to a charger. So 10 hours is just fine. But if I had 12, 14 hours, that would be great, but if it's really slow, I'm not going to use it at all.
So the other thing that interests me is we look at all these products, Georgia, and we had the iPhone, we had the iPad, we had the MacBook, and now all of these things, it's not just about them, it's about everything else that they can do. And you this week, I mean, you looked at connected devices, health devices, wearables, you looked at rock'em, sock'em, battle brawling, laser blasting robots. All these things are now peripheral to the devices we already have.
It used to be that Apple would make things for us, but now people make things for Apple for us, which is amazing. The ecosystem is just blooming.
And it's in cars now too, right? Like we saw Derek Kessler from Mobile Nations. He was looking with Anthony. They went and looked. Was it a BMW?
BMW.
And we had GM out here who was talking about putting apps in your cars.
Yeah.
And they said, they're talking to John and I about, and this is near and dear to your heart, monitoring everything you do in a racetrack so you can actually learn how to do things better, like when to do your Tokyo drift, Richard.
Exactly. I mean, there's a lot of cars here at CES. There's a big push for people to get inside the cars. People have been trying to get on our phones and in our pockets, on our tablets for the last few years now, and it seems like the car is going to be the next, along with the home, the car is going to be one of the next playgrounds for everybody. So the BMW that Anthony and Derek went to see, that is everywhere. Everybody's got one of those on their booths. Intel's got one, Samsung's got one. They're at our hotel. They're everywhere, and it's all about this connectivity. It's we've got this app, and there's some really exciting stuff happening there.
The problem, though, with technology is, though it's amazing, we start to depend on it, and when technology fails, like for us not having any sound right now, it becomes a little bit of an issue. So everything can look great, but then one piece of the puzzle happens, and then, yeah, no one can hear us.
Yeah, well, Ken, they say they can't hear us.
Apparently we've got no audio.
But they are overdubbing us like a Hong Kong movie, which is enormously affectionate for us.
I'm going to be careful what I say then, because they're all going to dub me differently.
I think that's exactly right. How far do you see it going, Georgia? Do you want all your things to be connected?
No.
For example, there's issues with cameras and microphones now. There's issues with location. Connectivity can do wonderful things. All of our dreams from little children was having, and I'm going to keep trotting this out, like the Tony Stark house or like Star Trek or something. But the reality of it is a little creepier than we thought.
It's such a, in my dreams, yes, I want everything absolutely connected. I want it to be able to go home, to have my coffee maker on, to have my bed warmed, my bath running, and everything to be connected to one thing without me even having to press a button. The problem with that is that having everything connected, who's listening, who's controlling what, and then, after a while I might not know how to, make toast unless my iPhone gives me permission to do it, and it might have died.
Helpless.
It was kind of interesting because we were at Nexio Home doing some videos the other day, and I had asked them, can't we have some sort of proximity where I get close to home, my iPhone says, hey, we're home, it can unlock my door. But I thought about it, I'm like, that's a little weird. Someone can just take me, put me next to my door, tie me up, and get in my house. So I guess we have to kind of
Or the
limit
other way
ourselves.
around, someone may not like you, and as you get close to home, it locks your door.
And I've seen your compatriots, the Top Gear, Jeremy Clarkson, take the Lamborghini Aventador out for a run and then say it was horrible because it's all computer controlled now, it's all connected now, and a big Lambo is supposed to try to kill you, not make your life easier.
Pretty much.
Launch control, what's that for?
the petrol head inside me is dead against it. You know, I'd be on that train of thought every day of the week. But from just from a technology perspective and where we're going and what these things do, not everybody's like me and wants to go and tear it up around a racetrack for hours on end.
I do.
You know, my wife, for example, she would probably just get in the car and
she'd use launch control.
Yeah, she's probably a bad example, but you know, the average car buyer has this thing in their pocket now, which has all their music on, all their contacts, their navigation. You know, everything is right there on our iPhone or our Android phone, and just being able to get in a car and have all the same stuff just there it's exciting, but probably
yeah, we
maybe
had
not for me.
Pioneer on, and their new sound system. Basically, you just plug your iPhone into it, and it'll take all your existing media. It has access to all of your apps. It's letting the interface on your iPhone do the heavy lifting because we already know how to do that. Why bother learning a secondary interface? But the thing that makes me interested here, Richard, is if you take a company like LG or like Samsung or like Hitachi, they manufacture everything. They make the stoves, the ovens, the vacuum cleaners, the oil rigs, whatever. It's easy for them to make the Galaxy fridge. Apple does not make refrigerators. Apple does not make cars. They do not make toilets. They will not license iOS or OS 10 either. So how Apple gets into this is a more interesting question. Do they do, for example, iOS in the car? Do they do bidirectional AirPlay and just project iOS onto someone else's screen?
I'm really excited to see what iOS in the car brings. Having seen, obviously this week, Google's announced an open automotive alliance.
Of course they did.
To get on board with people like Audi and those and GM, big hitters like that. But I mean, for some people, AirPlay will be enough. Just get in, press a button, have all the same stuff on the on your car that you've got on your phone. But
like an Apple TV for your car.
Yeah, but I kind of think that it needs to go a bit to control the car properly. It needs to go further. So the iOS in the car thing is maybe where it should be going, because it's going to be tailored. At the end of the day, personally speaking, I wouldn't want just a grid of icons just to appear in my car. Even if it had a touchscreen, like the massive touchscreen on the Tesla Model S, it's got to be tailored. It's got to do because ultimately it's a car, not a phone. So you've still got to be able to get that ultimate control without having to sort of.
Well, plus it's a little bit dangerous because my driving skills. If you've seen the InMotion video, is sketchy at
Legendary.
best.
Scary.
Scary. So having a whole bunch of buttons that I have to press in order to do whatever it might be is a little bit dangerous in order to do that at the same time. So I need something that is involved in the interface, but does not distract people from the road, because already you see people texting, doing everything in their car, having a coffee, reading a newspaper, texting at the same time as driving. Maybe not the safest thing to be able for them to be watching the Kardashians at the same time as driving.
The Kardashians from Star Trek or the Kardashians from Kim? What's her name?
Depends which type of
either is dangerous.
tech we're talking about.
I'm hoping Apple takes this beyond the car. For example, I have a Canon DSLR, and the interface is horrible. It's difficult to learn. Every one of them is different. Every car interface is different too, mind you.
Yep.
But I would just like to have iOS take over my camera and give me the same interface that I'm used to. I'd like to have iOS take over a wide variety of devices so that the interface that I know is always there, but also I don't have to upgrade to Toaster Generation 2. As soon as my iPhone is updated, the device is updated. I think that's the benefit of the future.
Casey Bailey from the chat room says that Apple isn't going to go where they don't see a market. I think that that's absolutely right. If we say that this is what we want, they can make a profit. Apple will probably wait and see what everyone else does and what is going to be profitable, and then do it better.
Wasn't that the argument that Apple is a hardware company, not a software company? So I mean, it doesn't make any sense for them to kind of go down that track now, since they've been so successful up until now.
See, that's what I wonder though, because they are doing iOS in the car, and they have done things historically, and I think maybe. Because that's a huge argument whether Apple is a software or hardware company, because we know they're not a services company. Whether they're actually a product company and they will do the hardware implementation where it makes sense because it makes the most money for them, but they'll do things like put iTunes on Windows if they have to, or put iWork on the cloud if they have to, or even maybe do things like iOS in the car when they think that will increase the overall value of their ecosystem and thereby generate them maybe 2 steps more money, not direct more money.
Well, I guess you need like a brave executive to kind of do that, right? Like your story with the iTunes on Windows, like it wasn't going to happen until someone said.
Well, Steve Jobs said no. He said no, and then he said basically F you guys, and then Phil Schiller and Joe Rubinstein said we're doing it anyway, and it worked great.
Yeah.
And there's been examples of that several times at Apple. I mean, Steve Jobs wasn't a fan initially of the small form factor tablet. There's been numerous occasions where he said just don't do this, and they went and did it. And I think one of the good things about Steve Jobs and Apple is that if someone says no, and it's still a good idea, it can sometimes still make it out into the world.
Sometimes when Steve Jobs says no, it's really maybe.
Well, it's no until he decides it's a good idea, then it was his idea.
Then it was always yes.
We're at CES, and for decades, we watched people like Bill Gates come out and give us these beautiful presentations about, we have our smartphone, we put it on our desk, it becomes our computer, we go into our living room, it becomes our gaming machine. That was 15 years ago. Microsoft is still struggling to deliver that. We're at a time now where literally my iPhone 5S and my iPad Air have a chip in it that's as powerful as my MacBook was a couple of years ago. Are we getting closer to this one device brain reality, or are they just going to make every device co-powerful?
Yeah, that's a great question. I remember seeing that video a long time ago, and I was like, wow, that was so cool. I mean, I want that now. I thought it was happening now. He took his phone, he was watching it on his TV, he took his phone, he walked out of his car, his CNN was still playing, or whatever was happening there. That was great. I don't know. I don't know why they can't do that yet. I figured at that time they could do that stuff, but you'd think that it would be more interconnected, especially Apple, who likes to have its own ecosystem.
Yeah, you looked at the Ubuntu phone system, and that promises the same thing, but still, it's like the future. It's always coming, but it's never here.
Yeah.
We end up with having to buy a whole bunch of pieces of tech to do many different things. So I have like boxes and boxes of tech that I have. I would love to have one tech to rule them all.
So another trend this year, and one that you've been covering, Georgia, is the idea of iOS-controlled toys. Now, we've seen things like the Parrot drone before. We've seen things like iOS-controlled cars. We've even seen Anki Drive before. But we're seeing a ton of that stuff here, from the laser-guided robots to new generation Parrots. What's impressing you about the toys this year, if anything?
I love the fact that they're getting better at making the control really effortless and dealing with the way that you interact with them. So the toys are becoming more and more interactive and more responsive. So it used to be that you could get a toy, it took forever to charge, and then it would break immediately upon usage, which is what happened with a lot of the different helicopters, which I loved. But they were just one of these things that you could use a few times, but then you're going to put them away because the amount of charging and everything else that you're doing with them isn't really worth it. Now we end up with toys that you would already buy anyways, and now they're also Apple connected. So you can use them on your phone, you can take video with them, they can take pictures, and you can do much more with them than you could before.
Things like we saw Anki Drive, right, Richard? But the interesting thing about that is it's not just an iPhone remote control car. The car has its own ARM processor, its own artificial intelligence. It can play against you, or it can just make sure that you don't suck incredibly badly when you first start playing.
Yeah, it's really, really flattering. But no, you're right. It's gone beyond just a pick up a play toy, and it's becoming something much more than that. It's got its own brain. It can figure things out for itself, and you just minimal control and just let it off and go off. And it's kind of, you can think that
it's like launch control.
It's taking us just little baby steps at a time towards that kind of more autonomous future where you can just hit something on your phone and stuff happens for you. The machinery will think and figure out what it needs to do, and
which
you
sounds
can just sit
really
back and relax.
Awesome, and then really scary on the other side.
Very
scary. About a whole bunch of those Anki cars coming at you, and they're just self-controlled. They drive around on they're sweet. They drive around the track. They will not, even with me driving the car, I will not crash into anything because they go around the track and deal with it. But think of 1,000.
John P. just came and took his phone so gracefully that I had to expose him for the magician that he is.
I had to grab it. I left it on the set. What can I say?
It's a Samsung phone, John, on an Apple podcast.
Sorry. I tried to be discreet.
My mellow is harshened and my childlike sense of wonder became adult. So, Anthony, you had to film a lot of these things. You saw the new generation Parrot drone, which also has wheels, the jumping sumo. What did you think of these things? Are they interesting? Are they gimmicks? Are they something that, are they real life video games come manifest, or are they just gimmicks?
They're neat. They're fun. We have a Parrot drone at home, and you know what? It's fun to use for half hour or so, but after a while, kind of like the appeal kind of wears off. And what I really hate, honestly, are the controls in terms of touching a touchscreen. I don't like that. It's not fun for me at all. My thumbs are not that dexterous, so until that gets changed, I don't think I'm going to.
So what about the Signal controller that you can use to control a game on it?
What
if
is
you
that?
had something
Sorry.
like that, it's an actual, like say that you have your Xbox controller, you're playing a game, you can use the Signal controller on your iPad, so instead of having those horrible D buttons that you don't know when your fingers
It looks
are
exactly
off.
like an Xbox 360 controller.
But
It
it's a
look.
And
Bluetooth- is it a Bluetooth thing
It's
that
a
controls your
Bluetooth
iPad?
connection.
It is, and it's really, really responsive. And so, you know, yeah, it's true. There's certain things that are great for the iPad, and there's certain things that are a little bit missing for that, and that's why it's so nice
What's
to
a little
have.
bit sketchy about those is that, you know, some games support it, some games don't.
That is
And you
the
know, you
problem.
get all excited, you think, oh, I have this great controller, I want to be able to use it. You go and you get your favorite game and you realize, oh, it's not supported yet. You got to wait until the developers decide to support that
And
device.
that's exactly like something I saw yesterday. There's a company called Canopy's making an iPhone case called Census, and it's got like a touch responsive panel on the back of the case. It's not capacitive, so there's no sort of swiping motions or anything like that, but it's pressure sensitive, so it can detect where you're touching and how hard. But they need to produce, obviously, the case for themselves, but they also need to produce an SDK so that app developers can hook into it. So it's a really, really great idea, and I'm really excited to see where it goes. But at the same time, if the app developers don't get behind it, we're still no closer to having this, you know, this
Right.
one thing for everybody.
Yeah.
Because it still has to be baked in. So.
All right, we only have a couple minutes left, so I want to kind of finish on a high note. I want to ask, I've seen certain things that I believe are your favorite CES moments. I'm going to lead you there, but feel free to disagree with me. Start with you, Richard. You came out with pictures of a Lamborghini I have never seen before.
Yes, I've never seen it before either. Apparently there's only been kind of 3 made, but there's at the Monster booth there's a $4.5 million Lamborghini that's on
$4.5
display. Because Monster did the audio in there, it's just completely insanely ridiculously good. So if anybody's knocking around CES in the next couple of days, definitely head down there and take a look at it.
You have an
It's
extra
absolute-
$4.5 million in your pocket. We have the toy for you.
showstopper. Absolute showstopper. But
Does it
yes,
have
it's
iOS
awesome.
integration?
No idea.
I'm sorry, Lamborghini.
They won't let me close
They wouldn't
enough.
let you near it.
So
Georgia, there's a couple things that stand in mind to me, but I'm gonna save one for Anthony. The first one is Quentin Rampage Jackson from the UFC. He has made an iPhone case, and yes, it's on a chain.
It's on a chain. It's really cute. It's from Trident, and he did a great interview with us. He was really, really kind, and so it's attached to the chain, attaches to your belt. No one can steal your phone unless
Who would
you
steal a
want them
phone
to.
from Rampage?
That is such a good. That's a brilliant
You gotta be
point.
crazy. If you're not familiar with him, he is the B.A. Baracus. He took over from Mr. T on the A team, playing B.A. Baracus. Anthony, was the highlight of the show for you watching Georgia taser herself?
Oh, it was nerve-wracking because we had to do the Rampage interview afterwards. I was worried we were going to miss that. But since
You
she
weren't
got
worried
there,
about
I'm worried
me
about
damaging
you. No,
myself. You're worrying about
that was
not
your
getting
choice.
to meet Rampage. Thank you. Thank you.
So what's it like being tasered?
It was really painful. It was really
And we
quite
have this on
painful.
video, right?
We have it on video. You can go check it out, all of you evil people. I know who you are. The funniest part of it was that no one was allowed to get tased, stunned, because they were worried about getting sued. So I said, okay, well, can I do it to myself? And they said, okay. And now suddenly, a whole bunch of people start gathering to watch me, maybe die. That's what I was. They're probably hoping. Some of you might be hoping. So I stood there, and I really started sweating. Because you don't know how it's going to feel, and so that was my.
But she was
my
a
moment.
trooper because she didn't like the way the first take went.
I-
So
You
she
did
did
it
it the
again?
second
I
time.
did. I never said it was bright.
All right, and the absolute highlight for me has been working with all of these people, the talented team from GeekBeat, all the Mobile Nations bloggers and the GeekBeat staffers who are working so hard
So
on the
amazing.
tables down there. You guys are absolute pros. Say hello to the camera, guys. Wave.
Say hello.
Android Central
hello.
smartwatch fans,
They-
Crackberry, the video crews.
They have been the sweetest, most professional,
Absolutely.
and amazing
And
set
I
of
want to
teams.
say
I'm
thanks
so lucky.
to
Thank you
Mark,
so
the
much.
two Daves, to Ken for running all
Thank
this,
you.
John and
Thank
Callie,
you.
Kevin Mitchelluk, Marcus Adelson, Andrew Carden. Everyone here is working so hard. We are going to finish up. We're going to be here for a couple more days. Then we're going to be back home trying to digest all this and see what comes next. So Richard, if people want to follow more of your work for both Android Central and iMore at the show, where can they go?
You can follow me on Twitter at Ricker666 and iMore, Android Central, maybe a bit of smartwatch fans while we're here as well. All of the places.
All the places. Georgia, what's your Twitter handle? You're on Instagram now.
I'm kind of on Instagram. I'm learning how to use it. I know I'm late to the races, so I apologize. But you can follow me on both, and my handle is @Georgia_Prime.
Now, Anthony, you have none of the social things.
Well, if anyone has seen the movie Machete, okay, you got a great line where he says, "Machete, don't text."
Yes.
Well, Anthony doesn't anything.
So if you want to see what Anthony's doing, you have to go to imore.com or follow @imore, because that's the only way to get to his work. But if you see the videos, most likely he is shooting them.
And how do they find you?
You can find me @Rene Ritchie on all of the social things. You can find all of our podcasts at imore.com/podcast. Special shout out to James Faulkner, who's running the show for us today.
James!
He also runs our forums. Everything getting done is getting done by the grace of him. Thank you to everybody for joining us, everyone who's here. If you are at CES, come to the booth. We are in South Hall, lower level. We have iMore swag. We have Mobile Nation swag. Come pick it up, say hello. We'd love to meet all of you.
Get a pin badge.
Until next time, guys, thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.